Hi there, Mike from Greenway. So, a question I get asked from time to time is how often do I have to replace the battery in my electric vehicle? And it's something that is a question that I don't really think about too much because I've never replaced the battery in an electric vehicle before. So, I've found an article on the website insideevs.com, and I have a link to it in the description if you want to read it. But they state that there's research being done since 2011. If they keep track of the battery replacements for all EVs since 2011, they have a graph per year of battery replacements. And they said since 2011 until present, there's been 2.5% of the batteries have been replaced in electric vehicles. But they also point out that 2011 and 2012, where it's early on in battery technology, those were the 2 years where the most batteries were being replaced. Now, if I think back in time to 2011 and 2012, I bought my first EV in 2013. So at that time, there was very little selection of electric vehicles, and they were all very expensive. Compared to today, there's dozens of different models available, different ranges, and different styles of EVs. Could be SUVs or cars or trucks and everything else in between. But back then, there was the Tesla Roadster, which they only sold until I think till 2010 or 2011. And then there was the Tesla Model S, which had just come out in 2012. And then there was the Nissan Leaf, which had just come out in 2011. And then there was the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, which had just come out, well, depending on the market you're in, they were out as early as 2008. But in the North American market, I think 2012 was the first year they were being sold. So in that year, in 2011, 2012, if we look at battery replacements as a percentage of overall batteries, it was higher. And I do know that the Nissan Leafs in 2011 and 2012 were having trouble with heat. So if they were being purchased in warm climates, in Arizona or southern Texas or Florida, the heat was really getting to them. Now, the good news is every battery comes with a warranty, and many companies give you an 8-year or a 10-year warranty. So all these battery replacements they're talking about were warranty replacements. The oldest EVs have just come off of warranty, and so there's probably very few out of warranty battery replacements. Now, of course, you can do a Google search, and absolutely you will find a story of someone who has taken their car into the shop and got told they have to replace the battery. But by and large, that is the exception, not the rule. So as you go forward in the article, they say that, as the years pass, the technology is improved greatly, and the chemistry in the batteries has improved greatly. So if you look at 2014, 2015, it improved. 2016, I think, was the best. 2017, it did tick up, and they've segregated the warranty and out of warranty battery claims on the list. 2017, 18, 19, there was a fairly big recall for the Chevrolet Bolt. That's B with a Bolt with a B, not Volt with a V. So anyways, yeah, they had their two cars named very similarly. But by 2020 or 2021, they realized that there is a problem with that battery architecture. And so Chevrolet had to recall and replace all the batteries in the Chevrolet Bolts from 2017 until 2020 or something. I don't remember the exact time period. But so that did increase the recall, but increase the battery replacements. But the good news is the consumer didn't pay for it, aside from the inconvenience of having to take their car in and leave it at the shop for a day to get it switched out. So again, the cost to the consumer is very low. In another video, I'll show you my 10-year-old Nissan Leaf. It's a 2014, and it's never had a battery replaced, and the battery is still fine and good, and works fine, and there's no need to replace it. And I think by and large, that's how most electric vehicles are progressing as they age. Like any car, they'll get their squeaks and rattles, and you need to, replace the tires and the brakes and the windshields, wipers and washer fluid, that sort of thing. But the batteries are kind of like an engine, right? So if you've got a 10-year-old, let's take that case. So you've got a 10-year-old electric vehicle, and the battery is out of warranty now, and then you go in, maybe you have a problem with it, and you take it in and they say, yep, you need a new battery, and sorry about that, it's going to cost you $10,000. Well, if you had that same situation with a gas vehicle that's 10 years old, it'll also for sure be out of warranty. And then if you had some major engine problem, they'll say, yep, you got to replace your engine, and it's going to cost you how many thousands of dollars. So the question then is, for a vehicle that old, do you actually replace it? Do you actually spend that money on a 10-year-old vehicle? Now, fortunately, according to this survey, there's not a lot of vehicles that are falling into that situation, and I think the same thing holds true for gas vehicles as well. I'm sure you've heard of some, but there's not a lot that need a engine replacement or a major repair after 10 years. And of course, any car is a machine, so they don't last forever, whether it's a battery car or a gas car. And so eventually every car will fail at some point in time, just a matter of when. So the research there, now that it's 10 years on, is allowing us to look back now and see the technology and see how it's improved. And it seems like the battery enhancements they've been making have been quite good, and it's caused them to be quite reliable. And you'll also, so just like you'll probably, if you did a Google search, you can find a guy that needed a battery replacement. You can do another Google search, you can find someone who has 500,000 miles on their electric vehicle and is perfectly happy with it. So there's different stories for every situation. But I think generally though, if someone is scared to buy an electric vehicle because they think they need to replace the battery every 2 or 3 years, the reality is that just isn't the case. Of course, you have warranty as well, right? So the first 8 years or 10 years, you're covered, so you're not going to have to replace the battery. But I mean, have you heard of people replacing the batteries over 2 or 3 years? I would ask around your local electric vehicle club, or your any family members or coworkers who have an electric vehicle. Have they had to replace their battery? In my experience, I don't think I can think of anyone who's ever told me, oh, I had to replace the battery in my electric vehicle. Now, there's another scenario where you might ask yourself, do I need to replace the battery in my car? So not only are batteries lasting longer, but the ranges on new vehicles is a lot longer as well. So you don't need to worry so much about the range degradation. So, but over the course of time, all batteries do slowly lose some range, and it's very, very gradual, and you barely notice it unless you're actually measuring it. But for some of those earlier cars, the ranges weren't that far to begin with. So then if you wait 10 years and maybe the range is degraded by 20%, then you might ask yourself, well, does this still have the amount of range that I want for my daily commutes? And so the car is likely functioning well, it's just that the range is reduced. So then that's a question of, do you want to do that? And by that time, you've got a 10-year-old vehicle. You might consider trading up to something newer and better, and with the more range. Now, the new vehicles are being sold today, and even in the past 5, 6, 7 years, those ones have quite a bit longer range. They're 200 miles plus, almost all of them. And so even if you do have a 10 or 20% reduction in range, you still got a few hundred miles potentially of range on the vehicle. The battery has not gone through as many charge and discharge cycles because of that, and so the battery is lasting a lot longer. So the reality is, the battery should be lasting you the life of the car. It's likely the car overall, the chassis and that sort of thing, will start to wear out or get old faster than the battery will. And the good news is, once the end of life comes, once the vehicle is no longer serviceable and it needs to be taken off the road, those batteries are being sought after for being put into stationary storage, for utilities and that sort of thing, or they can definitely be recycled. All the minerals and materials in there is set up to be quite good for recycling as well. So there's definitely no batteries going to be going into the landfill anytime soon. And then you've also got, I know in our electric vehicle club locally here, there's lots of folks who are interested. They're tinkering, they're engineering type folks, and they are buying a written off, insurance, total insurance loss vehicle. Then they're pulling the battery out and they're using it for their electric vehicle conversion, or their electric vehicle or other projects that need electric batteries. Folks are making lawnmowers and other things out of those recycled batteries as well. So there's lots of use for them. And the reality is 10 years ago, there wasn't tens and thousands of electric vehicles being purchased. There is, a few thousand here per year, but it's been increasing a lot. So anyway, I thought that article was interesting read, and like I said, I'll leave it in the link in the comments section below. And if you want to take a read of it, I'd be curious to get your thoughts on that subject. If you found this video interesting or informative in any way, I appreciate you giving me a thumbs up and consider subscribing for future videos. Thanks a lot for listening and have a great day.